Double P podcast. Double P.
What I like to call
Double P.
What I like to call
Double P podcast.
Welcome to Irish Craic, a podcast about the new television series Dublin Murders. My name's Bubba, and I am so excited to talk about this series. Why? Because it's based on two novels, and the first novel, the only one I've read of the two, is one of my favorite novels of all time. I just love it so much, and I was hoping and praying that somebody would adapt this, and now here it is on your television set known as Dublin Murders. That novel is entitled In the Woods, and it is once again one of my favorite novels of all time. But no, here on Irish Craic, we're not going to be spoiling the plot. We're not going to be giving away any hints as to where this twisty whodunit murder mystery is going to end up. We're calling the podcast Irish Craic because of a sentence made in this first episode when Varys, a.k.a. actor Conleth Hill, who portrays the Chief there in the Dublin Murders squad, is trying to explain away his sexist cracks by just calling him just that. It's just crack, meaning he's cracking a joke. It wasn't serious. Oh no, what if she reports me to HR? So yes, as an American, I'll be looking at this Irish Craic with all sorts of good cracks going on. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms as Double P Podcast. That's the word double, the single letter P, and then the word podcast. You can find us on social media at Double PHQ, the word double, the single P, and the letters HQ for headquarters. So once again, that's at Double PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/Double PHQ. We are currently covering a lot of great shows. We're covering the HBO BBC adaptation of the His Dark Materials trilogy. We're also looking at the very first Star Wars live-action TV show, The Mandalorian. We've covered many great things in the past. Follow us at Double PHQ, Facebook.com/Double PHQ to find out about all the wonderful products we cover. And we want to talk to you. I've mentioned that I'm talking about this because I loved this novel. It's the debut novel for Tana French and became the first book in her series of books based around the Dublin Murder Squad. The novel is entitled In the Woods. For Goodreads, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it so much. And what I wrote there was just, the novel is simply excellent. This book won the 2007 Edgar Award. It's a mystery, but also a first-person procedural and a character study. The ending of this novel is a general downer, and yet it's perfect. A+. That was my review. Once again, no spoilers in that. I just love this novel so much, and I guess I should talk about why I loved it so much. I love murder mysteries. It goes back to when me, Bubba, was a young lad. I can't remember if I was 11 or 12, but it was at that time that I started reading every Agatha Christie novel ever written. And I got close to finish by the time I was 16 or 17 because I was just pouring through them. And I love murder mysteries. But a specific type of murder mystery, a specific type of whodunit. For me to love a murder mystery, it's got to meet certain requirements. One of the first ones is when you get to the reveal of whodunit, it has to make sense. This has to be a logical thing. Even if we as a reader, we as an audience member couldn't figure it out, in hindsight, we have to be able to go, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense. That really works. How do you get to that point? Well, a murder mystery has to play fair. AKA, the clues have to be on the page, or if it's a TV show like this, the clues have to be there on the screen so that the audience can use deductive reasoning to guess and figure out who possibly the killer was. You also need to be fair about how the killer did it and why they did it. A fair murder mystery doesn't involve magic tricks like, oh, he was able to enter a locked room because he can teleport himself to different places. Now, if you're in a science fiction world or a fantasy world where characters can teleport, that's fair game. But in most murder mysteries, there has to be some reason to this. There has to be logic to it. When I say it like that, how I like murder mysteries, it can make it seem like the murder mystery to be great is really a technical skill, meaning the plot mechanics work perfect. And it kind of takes some of the artistry out. So having that clockwork precision of a murder mystery is great. But it also has to have other things that pull you in. And in this novel, In the Woods, it had a very damaged and incredible lead character. This detective, Rob Reilly, a.k.a. Adam, the boy who went missing with the two other kids back in the 80s, the only one to make it out alive. What's interesting is this first season of Dublin Murders is actually based on two novels. This first novel, In the Woods, and the second novel in the series, The Likeness. So, okay, I've read In the Woods. I loved it. I called it one of the best novels ever. Yet I didn't ever actually read The Likeness. That may not make much sense. Well, why wouldn't you read the second book in the series? One quirk I have is to decide if I'm going to read a book or not, is I like to either download or in a bookstore read the first chapter. And if it grabs me, if it's exciting, I'll say, okay, let's read this. Let's see what's going on. For whatever reason, that first chapter of The Likeness didn't pull me in, didn't grab me. So I never actually picked it up and read it. I've seen several reviews online of people who have read the book and loved it. For me, it just never had that pull. And so this is going to be an odd podcast where the host knows some of the things that are going to happen, but has no idea on the others. So I'll be just as surprised as you. And hopefully, maybe I'll be able to make some guesses about where it's all going, since I haven't read that second novel. So why would a television series take two novels and kind of smush them together to make one season of a TV show? Well, on another show that we've done podcasts about, The Last Kingdom, which is based on a series of books by Bernard Cornwell, what they've done is they have like 8-episode seasons, and the first 4 episodes will be based on one novel, and then the last 4 episodes of a season will be based on the next novel in this series. Dublin Murders hasn't seemed to do that. Dublin Murders seems to just kind of have both novels happening concurrently. So once again, the question is, why would they do this? And so this is a brief kind of setup on the novels. In the first novel, In the Woods, the lead character is this character named Rob Reilly. Now his partner, Cassie Maddox, she is a character in the novel, but she's really a side character. What's interesting is in The Likeness, she's the lead detective in that case. So here they decided to do a show, and I assume they thought, well, we need this actress, Sarah Green, who portrays Cassie Maddox. They must have thought, well, we love her, let's give her more to do. So now possibly we could have two competing A storylines, where Rob's story is focused on the In the Woods bit, while Cassie's story is focused on the stuff from that second novel, which I never read, The Likeness. We shall have to see. Another reason why they may have squished them together to make one season has to go back to the whole format of that novel, In the Woods. In the Woods is a wonderful, wonderful novel. Like I said, I love it so much. But when I think about In the Woods, I always thought to myself, you can make a great movie out of this. It's one self-contained story. It's got twists and turns like any murder mystery, but it is just one story, and with some trimming, you could easily make it a 2-hour movie. This is the exact opposite of another novel I love, which is entitled The Goldfish, which came out as a 2-hour movie earlier this year, 2019, but that novel was a ridiculous Dickens-sized book, which followed a character from his early teens all the way up into his 20s, and he had all these adventures. And there they tried to condense that all into 2 hours. It didn't seem to work. Here, they're trying to take a story, In the Woods, which could have been a 2-hour film, and stretch it out over several episodes. That may be another reason why they decided to take both novels and put them into one story together. So I've been rambling on for a bit. Let's get to the most important question. Is this first episode any good? I actually think so. In fact, I'm going to give this episode, I'm going to give it 8 what I like to call double Ds. Double Ds, you may say? What are you implying there, Bubba? Well, honestly, double D is what we here at Irish Craic call Dublin Downers. This is a downer of a series. I think it'll be very fun as you get into it and emotionally drawn into it. But let's be honest, these are kind of downer things. As an audience, we don't have to put on an act like the police detectives. We can't just say, boy, we have had enough of watching murdered children. Let's go find a different show. So it's a downer Dublin, but 8 out of 10, I really, really did like it. Why? Well, it can actually be traced back to this cold open, aka the scenes that happened before the show open appears. This monologue at the beginning, which seems to be from the end of the series, from the end of this season, season 1, 4 months later on in the story. It's so good at setting the mood. It shows the damaged heart at the center of this character, Rob Reilly. What if the killed are the lucky ones? He murmurs. Cassie apparently doesn't care. We won't see each other again, she says as she leaves. So we know this season could, and most likely should, based on the terrible murder of a child, be headed to some real scary dark places in them darn woods. So 8 out of 10. This is the mood of the novel. Hopefully, once again, it'll be fun and interesting, and there'll be enough twists, which, if it sticks to the novel, it should, to keep you engaged as an audience. But also know that we are dealing with the story, and that murder seems to have some sort of connection to this time back in the 80s when 3 children, Peter, Jermaine, a.k.a. Jamie, and Adam went into the woods and disappeared, and only Adam was found. So yeah, it'll be depressing, yeah, it'll be dark, but I'm really hoping it's going to be good. I'm really hoping that these 2 actors, Sarah Green, who once again plays Cassie Maddox, and Killian Scott, who plays Rob Reilly, a.k.a. Adam Robert Reilly, really can pull this off. After that show open, which is, playing this falling out between the partners 4 months in the future, it's also intercutting this with Catherine doing a ballerina routine, as well as the scene in 1985 of those kids riding their bikes into the woods. Just wonderful, setting the mood. And once again, hopefully it's a mood that you guys can enjoy. If you didn't enjoy it, once again, reach out to us at DoublePHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. I want to talk briefly about the show open, all those images that get mirrored back and forth, mainly because we here at Double P Media, we podcasted about some shows which have some great opening titles, like Game of Thrones. These opening titles have me a bit worried because they aren't especially special. They just use a mirroring technique which you have seen on so many shows, including another show that we have podcasted about here on the Double P podcast feed, just from earlier this year, which was also another adaptation of a popular novel. That novel and show was called The Rook, and we podcasted every episode, but boy, there was some trouble there. The people who really loved that book, some of my co-hosts, thought that the TV series wasn't paying attention to what was great about the book. The book is pretty much about a top-secret government spy agency, which is populated with people who have supernatural powers and abilities. So fun, so exciting. The show kind of made it a bit of a downer and unfun to have these powers, and powers that at times weren't especially interesting. This cold open, that even if this Dublin Murders doesn't work as a TV show, the creators understand the main characters, especially Adam Rob Reilly, so well. So that is certainly a good sign. And those opening titles, once again, they could be a sign of trouble. It also could be a sign of trouble that this first episode is simply titled Episode 1. You didn't want to get creative and give the episode a title, writers and producers? That has me a bit worried. So we've seen that scene of our 2 detectives, Cassie and Rob, breaking up and saying we'll never be partners again. Then we jump back to 4 months earlier, and we are in August of 2006. In the episode, there's some fun signs that it's 2006. My favorite was when Cassie was using a flip phone, and you think to yourself, oh man, weren't flip phones cool back in 2006? Yeah, it was great. The show also does a great job visually, without dialogue, letting us know that these 2 police partners really work well together. It starts right there at the beginning, where they show up at the gas station, maybe over there they call them the petrol stations, homicide, where we can see things like, okay, the female detective is a little short, so her male detective partner gets her a step stool so she can see over the counter. When she's looking over the counter, he's holding a belt loop of her pants so she doesn't tumble over. They work well together. They're a team together. All of that is done without dialogue. Later, we see Rob and Cassie working on these people they suspect of this petrol station homicide. And they do a really good job. Rob especially seems to be almost too good at the evilness of it. So they hear from the creepy man his story. Then they go into the female suspect's holding room. And Rob says, your boyfriend says it was you. Oh, how brutal. What a lie. But it certainly starts to work. He's asking her things like, what's the jury going to think? And he's just ripping this poor woman apart. He's like, there's no happy endings for you, ever. Cassie is listening in. 3, 2, 1. She knows when this suspect is going to break. So good. Did Ken leave the flat? Did you get rid of the knife from him? The only thing that maybe makes this scene a little less effective is the Cassie and Rob can't seemingly stop smiling and pulling faces because they're so happy and they know they're succeeding. Later on, we see them out at the coast. They're sharing those terrible sandwiches. Is there tension between the two? Is this sexual tension between the two? Or is it just good partners? Later on, we see Cassie seems to be in a relationship with an attorney of some sort, or a barrister, however they say it across the pond. These two are working well together. Back in the murder squad headquarters, we can see Rob is well known. He's well liked, especially by Varys, the chief, Conleth Hill, who immediately wants to send Rob out on another case, and it's, this is a bad case for him to be doing. Rob picks up Cassie. She's been at court where some creepy guy was watching her up in the balcony, and some person that she's testifying about wants her dead. That, I assume, is some of the side story from the likeness. We'll have to see. But they go out to the woods. Cassie finds out where they're going, and she knows this is trouble. We could assume, maybe based on this episode, that Cassie knows that Rob is Adam, the kid who disappeared in the 80s with the 2 other kids, the only one to come out alive. They go out to this archaeological site, which is an archaeological site, and they have to do this dig quickly. Why? Because that whole area is going to be flattened to make way for a motorway that's being built, and we see billboards for that motorway throughout the episode. There's the dead girl, Catherine Devlin, 13 years old. There's a bug crawling across her face. Oh, I thought that was very effective, very tragic. Everybody's asking, does this have something to do with the others? And we learn about August 16th, 1985. 3 kids ride out on bikes. Once again, Peter, Jermaine, Jamie, and Adam. We don't know what happens. Adam loses track of his 2 friends relatively quickly, and then something happens to him and the screen cuts to black. Later on in 85, we see the search crews out with their flashlights at night trying to find them. What do we see? Adam on a tree, crying. The police take him in. They look at his socks and his shoes and see blood. But wait a minute. Adam wasn't cut anywhere. Even with the 3 slashes in his shirt, he wasn't cut anywhere. This must be the blood of his missing friends. Their parents are going crazy. Adam, tell us where our kids are. Where are our kids? And so Adam's parents send him to school in England. Possibly that's why everybody, when they talk to Rob, they're like, I don't have any problem with English, a.k.a. you. Not realizing that he's an Irish kid who just spent all his schooling years in England and maybe took on some of those personas, some of those accents. He's come back to Dublin, and now he's doing a case approximately 20 years later in the same woods. People don't recognize him in the neighborhood. We'll have to see how that goes on. I think since this is a murder mystery, let's look at the suspects. Who killed Catherine? Who are our suspects? Well, based on this first episode, I have to say it. One of the reasons why the novel's so good, and why hopefully this episode you found enjoyable, is that our lead character, Rob, sure could be a suspect in this, isn't it? He disappeared in the woods with his friends. They never showed up. He had their blood in his socks and shoes. Could we be watching Rob redoing his childhood trauma and now taking it out on this innocent girl, Catherine? He has to be a suspect. Oh, this is what makes it so good. Spoiler alert, the novel is written from Rob's perspective, so you also have that fun while you're reading it. Oh, it's so good. Let's continue on down the suspect list. So we have the archaeologist. The dig is being led by this guy, Mark Hanley. He seems to have no patience. Despite a little girl being killed, he's like, when can we get back to work? There are the 2 college kids who discovered the girl, Mel, the female student, and Damien, the male student, who are working on the archaeological dig as well. When you're dealing with a murder mystery, you always have to look at the family, and let's look at them real quick. Catherine's dad is Jonathan Devlin. He woke up and she was gone. He thought she had gone to her ballet training. He seems to be part of a team that is trying to get the motorway moved away from the forest and woods. He woke up in the night to look at his dead daughter's room. Was that because he felt guilty? And he happened to notice that his 2 living girls were now sleeping together in the same bed. Catherine's mother is Margaret. She seems catonic. Rob says that maybe it's possible she's addicted to prescription drugs and high as a kite. Is that suspicious? They're the two other daughters. Let's talk about Catherine's twin, Jessica. They share a bedroom. They share a creepy music box with a ballerina spinning inside. Jessica seems to have night tremors, and so Jessica often sleeps with her older sister, Rosalind. And Jessica, to find out your twin was murdered, didn't seem to have much of a reaction. Could she have a learning disability, as Rob implied? We also have Rosalind, the teenage daughter, who Cassie made some comments that, I have to be honest, I didn't notice. Apparently, Rosalind wasn't wearing a bra and wasn't wearing the right clothes for when your sister's missing. Okay, sure. There's the nosy neighbor in a wheelchair who already had flowers ready to present to the family. She makes a crack to Rob. I always like the English. She also asks if this had something to do with the missing kids from the 80s. A character we really didn't spend any time with. We saw her in the distance, but there's Simone Cameron, the ballet teacher who sent over a video of the dead girl's ballet performance. And of course, there's some other characters who, at this current point, feel a bit mysterious. There's this homeless person who seems to confront this guy named Cal, or Cathal, Cathal. To me, it sounded like Cal, where he's saying things like, "You, me, and Jonathan." Jonathan is the name of Catherine's father. "We can't escape this." We later see the homeless person walk down the street with a paint can, and he apparently paints "He Rises" on a billboard promoting the motorway that's going to come to town and wipe out the whole woods. I suppose another suspect is the creepy dude who was watching Cassie in court. Seemingly later in the episode, broke into Cassie's apartment. He was holding like a dental tool in his hand, and then he picked up the bottle cap of the whiskey bottle that Cassie had opened when Rob came over after his bad dream, and he spun the whiskey cap on top. Who is he? Could he be tied up in this some way? We shall have to see if that's all our suspects, or if we'll meet some as we go along. Now, let's look at the facts. We know that Catherine, from her stomach contents, she ate about 5 hours before her death. Then, relatively close to her death, she ate a chocolate cookie. She had trauma to her head. But after the trauma to her head, somebody put a plastic bag over Catherine's head to kill her. And she was in that position, left in that position, there at the archaeological site, seemingly put up on a pedestal. So, we've laid out the facts. Now let's look at some of the artistry in this. This show was apparently done right after Game of Thrones got done filming in Belfast, so a lot of those crews ended up working on this show, which I believe is filmed in Dublin, but also a lot of Northern Ireland as well. Everything's kind of desaturated, and the characters, we see all the bumps on Adam/Rob's face. We see all the cracks in his thing, and I don't mean the cracks that are sexist comments from the chief, varies. And there's also seemingly trying to give it some atmosphere. Atmosphere coming up mainly in Rob's dream, where he's dreaming back of that night, and somehow in the woods he remembers this wolf with yellow eyes. And then suddenly in his dream, the wolf is there in the bedroom with him. And there's this very slightly creepy shot of he and the wolf face to face. Like, "Give me some personal space, wolf, enough." And then he wakes up. Adam, a.k.a. Rob. Boy, I'm going to call him Rob, a.k.a. Adam, or Adam, a.k.a. Rob, almost every time. They have a lot of trouble, a lot of damaged goods. And he shouldn't be on this case, right? He shouldn't. He has a conflict of interest. Is he possibly the killer because of whatever happened to him in those woods back in the 80s? This is the stuff that gets me so excited. I'm so intrigued about how it could go, where it could go. When I was reading the novel, I was gripped immediately because of Rob's damaged psyche, his damaged heart. I hope the show is going to live up to it as we go forward. Well, I've rambled on long enough. What did you guys think? I need you to write us. This is a interactive podcast here at Double PHQ. So go to Twitter, Instagram, go to our Facebook page if you want to write a lot. Facebook.com/DoublePHQ, and tell me what you thought of this first chapter. Who do you think is this chief suspect? Why would anyone want to kill an innocent 13-year-old girl? What sexist crack will the chief make next week? We want to have fun as we enter into this dark heart for all these episodes. I'm going to end this episode of Irish Crack every week with some small bit of Irish slang, Irish cracks, Ireland facts that I've learned. Now, a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, can't really remember how long, I went to visit my aunt and my cousin who live over there in Drogheda. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. It's a city about 45-minute drive north of Dublin. And my aunt, who was born there in Ireland and knows all this stuff, she was trying to teach me some Irish slang and Irish crack. One Irish saying she was very fond of there is, if you wanted to tell somebody hell no, apparently they have a saying, I will in me arse, meaning something like, hey, do you want to fly on a one-way ticket to Mars and die on Mars? I will in me arse, aka I won't do it. And so that was my Aunt Anna's Irish crack. Hopefully that still makes sense. Hopefully they still say, I will in me arse. And you can use that as a phrase at your next cocktail party. Just drop it in any particular instance when somebody asks you to do something you don't want to do. If you know other Irish cracks, hey, hit me at Twitter and Instagram at DoublePHQ, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. We're going to be coming out with these podcasts every time an episode airs here in the States on the Stars television series, on the Stars television network. And so write us and give us all the inappropriate Irish cracks you can. Once again, my name's Bubba. We really need you to go ahead and subscribe. Hit any like button on any social media site you find. Please give us a review on any podcast app you download this from, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Libsyn, anything. Please, we need reviews. That's how other people find out about the podcast. So we need you to subscribe and do all that stuff. And of course, after hearing me ramble for half an hour, if you're thinking, subscribe, yeah, I will in me arse, well, I could understand that too. Get ready to download us next week when we talk about episode 2. Good night.